Hi everyone, welcome back to another update video on our solar use and energy use at home. I'd like to take you through some of the statistics for the month. A great month it has been. But first, a bit of an introduction. I'm Nigel, based in Norfolk in the UK. That's on the southeast coast of the UK, near Great Yarmouth, famed for the Broads and the North Norfolk coast. And the sun here, it's pretty good. We seem to get quite good weather here generally because we're closer to the coast. So our numbers have been very good compared to some people that have similar solar arrays in a more northerly location in the UK. Our configuration, we've got two solar arrays. One's using a Solis inverter, a 3.6 kilowatt inverter, and we've got 3.9 kilowatts of solar panels connected to it. In addition, I've then last year added another 2 kilowatts to that. That's a Solar Edge 2 kilowatt inverter and 2.4 kilowatts of solar panels. And in the last 2 months, we've been testing a Pure Drive Energy 4.8 kilowatt hour home storage battery. That's an AC coupled battery. I'm an electric car user. I have a Hyundai Kona Electric 64 kilowatt hour, which is a great storage location for all that energy I'm generating. And also we're My Energy customers. We use the Eddy device to divert excess solar energy into our hot water using the standard immersion heater and immersion tank here. And also we have the Zappi car charger. So I use data from the My Energy app to look at the Zappi, to look at home usage, to look at solar. I also use the Solar Edge app to look at my solar generation of that second array, and it gives me an indication of how my whole system is doing because it also looks at consumption and the grid import and export. That's the most accurate application and most useful that I find to use. The Solis inverter provides information for my generation of my first solar array, but because it's not a good app and it doesn't have a really good interface, doesn't show me any more information, I actually really use that. So I have the combination of the Solar Edge app to tell me what's going on solar-wise and the My Energy app to show me what's going on for my entire system. The battery storage system that we have, the Pure Drive Energy battery, that actually uses a Victron inverter and the Victron VRM application. So I'm using that also to look at the battery state of charge, and it also sees grid usage and solar. So we've got all these different individual component systems, and it's one thing that I would say, it's great to mix and match. It's great to pick the component that you really like for your solar panels, your inverter, your battery, etc. But it can give you a mismatch of information, and you'll find one is better than the other, one's more accurate than the other, and it can lead to a little bit of frustration because they're not equal. Anyway, I covered that in a previous app, but I just wanted to share the information about the configuration that we have here today. The other thing I wanted to share with you today is, when I do these updates, I don't tend to do them exactly the same. I shoot the videos in different locations around the house or in the garden or in the car, and I covered the details differently each time. And partly that's because I look at the data differently each month and I observe different things in the data each month. And I'm trying to portray what I'm seeing and what I'm learning as I go through the process. So that's partly why the videos are different every time. But also, if there are particular things you've seen in some videos that I'm not now showing in current videos, let me know in the comments below what you find works for you, what information is of value to you, what you find interesting, and what you don't. Should I focus on more battery information? Should I focus on more energy usage? The other thing I wanted to share today was some of the things that I do with my data. For example, I compare my data to other systems. And I'll give a shout out to Spectrum Geeks on YouTube. That's Dale. He also shows his energy usage for his configuration online, and I find his videos really, really useful because his system and his usage is very, very different to mine. So the contrast is very helpful. He's a much bigger energy user than we are. He has the similar My Energy devices, and he has more solar panels and a bigger output than we do. But he also has the Tesla Powerwall too. So the comparison between that and the Pure Drive Energy battery that we have, I find really useful. And then also I find it useful to see his perspective on energy usage and how much he uses his battery, etc. versus ours, where we're so low energy users, then our requirements and our view of things is perhaps slightly different. I do also watch other videos from other people. I also watch John Tisbury's YouTube videos on his energy usage. They're very good videos also. He's got a more comparable sized system to us, but again has higher energy use. He runs a business at home like Dale does, I believe, and those basically consume a lot more energy than we do. When I look at Spectrum Geek's videos, his current one up for May usage on his solar system, you can see that on his Solar Edge app that he's drawing from the grid 0.6 kilowatt hours a day, even on the most sunny days where he's got lots of export and he's got more energy use than he actually needs. Now, the system that we have here with Pure Drive Energy, we've got it configured and it's only drawing a tenth or less than a tenth of a kilowatt hour in the same time period on the same days. So he's got a lot more background grid draw, which he puts down to the fluctuation in the grid. I think that's true. I think that's what it is. But there's also a parameter on most batteries where you can set your set point for where you're going to fluctuate that grid to and from. So if it's set to 0, it goes above and it goes below. But if you set it to a minus number, so it's exporting slightly more, then it's going to favour exporting slightly more than importing from the grid. And that balance, that fluctuation can be altered and you can get less grid draw. We've got friends with the Tesla Powerwall 2 also, and they had the similar sort of issue where they had 1 kilowatt hour of grid draw a day, and they shouldn't have really had that. They've got a huge amount of solar panels, big battery storage, they're medium users of energy, I think. So that grid draw was quite high, especially compared to what I'm seeing. So they called their installer and checked their configuration, and he was able to change some parameters and change it so it only drew 0.1 of a kilowatt hour a day. If you've got a home storage battery solution and you've got a lot of grid draw overnight, a constant 30, 40, 50 watt hours of energy being drawn from the grid, then it could well be that it's the installation parameters that need slightly adjusting if you would like to favour a little more export of energy rather than import. So it's worth contacting your installer, I think, to see whether your system is actually configured how you want to use it. Talking about whether you configure the system or not, I also know on Dale's videos, Spectrum Geek's videos, that he talks about the Tesla Powerwall and the frustration where sometimes it automatically predicts whether it's going to charge the battery overnight using cheaper energy, and sometimes when it doesn't. So it gets the artificial intelligence not quite right, that it's not quite predicting your usage, and it might well charge the battery overnight when actually there's enough solar in the day to have charged it anyway. So for me, I prefer to have a battery that I can control, and if I haven't charged it up correctly, it's my fault. I think I would find it more frustrating that I've got an automated system which works 80, 90, 95% of the time, or more, whatever the percentage is, but those frustrations when it's got it wrong, I would find a little bit more frustrating than if I made the mistakes myself, because I can learn and I can adjust, but you're relying on a computer system that you can't influence. It does what it wants to do, and you're trusting on Tesla to actually update the algorithms, I guess. So that's a big difference between his configuration and mine. That difference in the level of control I find interesting. I'm not trying to say whether one is better than the other, because it's up to you as an individual as to whether you prefer it one way or the other. I'm used to having the control and I like that control. Other people with the Tesla Powerwall might prefer it to be more automated so they can let go. Anyway, let's go over to the stats and have a look at what's actually happened here for the month. It has been a fantastic May. I honestly thought April was such an incredible month of sunshine and solar generation that we wouldn't surpass that. It would be a weird year where April was the best generation for the entire year. We've had record rainfall in February, we've had a record April, and now we've had a record May as well, because we've generated an incredible 1,050 kilowatt hours between our two arrays. 1,050, a megawatt hour. Now, from a numbers perspective, yes, that's a huge number, and if you look at the comparison to other months, yes, it's like 30% bigger than anything we've had before, which is all wonderful, but a megawatt hour, what would you use that energy for? Looking at Dale's videos, he's actually capable of consuming that much energy. We're not here, so on the really, really good days that we've had in May, we've heated our hot water, we've run the house, we've charged the battery back up, we've done all the things we want to, we've done washing, cooking, all those sort of things, but we've still exported over 30 kilowatt hours. The vast majority of what we've produced we've exported to the grid. Now that as a specific issue has made me think, well, why did I buy that second array of solar panels? Because it looks like whatever we're producing in the second array, we're just throwing back to the grid. We didn't need it. So why did I install that second array of panels? And yeah, it just brings my mind back to the decision-making process. I knew that in really good months, we wouldn't be using all of the energy we're generating. We would be generating an excess. So why did I want that excess? Well, partly it's because of future requirements. I want a heating system based on electricity, and I also want air conditioning in the house. So those things are going to use more energy. So I need more for the future. We might also go for a second electric car, so I'll need more energy for that. So basically having more gives me more power for the future. So installing it all up front, I think has been helpful. But the main point of installing those extra solar panels wasn't to cover the 4 or 5 brilliant months in the summer. It was to make sure we had more energy in the winter and those months that bookend the really, really good months. So months where we would have generated 300 kilowatt hours, we're now going to be generating up to, let's say, 500 kilowatt hours. So it makes a month different where we could rely on partly our solar energy that we're generating to now we can rely on all our solar energy. So all of our needs can be met just by solar energy. Now that might seem a little extreme, that I'm wasting it in the summer to gain in the winter and the in-between months, but that was the purpose of it. And then perhaps adding a battery will really, really help reduce the grid draw as well during the winter. The ultimate aim is to be self-sufficient as much as we possibly can for the entire year. Now the difficulty is here in the UK that winter time is really, really difficult. There isn't a lot of sunshine, so there's not a lot of excess. In winter months, I don't have any spare energy to export. It all goes into the car or into the eddy device for heating the hot water. So there is no spare energy. So if I haven't got any spare energy, how can I charge the battery and then use it overnight? That's a dilemma that I've got to come across in the winter months, now that we've got a battery. But ultimately, what I need is more energy, more production during the winter. And solar panels, well, that's probably not going to be the answer, because I'd probably need about 100 to 150 solar panels to generate enough energy in the winter to look after our needs. So at some point, I will probably look at adding a small wind turbine to see whether we can trickle feed that energy from a wind turbine into a battery to keep the battery topped up. So in winter time, the combination of solar, looking after the house and trying to charge the battery, in conjunction with a small wind turbine charging the battery, might provide us with all the energy we need. That's the sort of future that I'm looking at. That's the aim. But at the moment, it's step by step, working out what we can do with what we've got. Anyway, enough of me yabbering on about all those sort of things. Let's talk about the data. What did we actually get this month?
So let's literally just go through the numbers. 242.2 kilowatt hours of house consumption. 130 kilowatt hours of solar energy went to the hot water, 43 kilowatt hours went to charging our Kona electric, and we had 4.3 kilowatt hours of grid import. So we only paid for 4.3 units of electricity. Total use 419.5 kilowatt hours, and we exported 560.9 kilowatt hours. Incredible. Energy into the pure drive battery 65.39 kilowatt hours, and energy that we took out of the battery 57.27 kilowatt hours, a round trip of 87.6%. And that seems in line with other battery solutions. So the 1,050 kilowatt hours that we generated breaks down to 382 from the 2 kilowatt array, the Solar Edge array, and 668 from the 3.6 kilowatt Solace array. I find it useful to have a combined graph that I do myself, and this really pictorially shows the difference between last year and this year, both with better sunshine and also the second array. The difference is incredible. Looking at more comparisons, if we compare April this year to May this year on this Solar Edge array, what we can see is there's only a 40 kilowatt hour difference, so it's just over 10% difference between the 2 months. The big difference is, look at how many days are below 4 kilowatt hours generation in April, but May it has a much higher average. And another comparison, let's have a look at May last year to May this year, and again we can see the difference is the number of days where we didn't generate a lot. There were some more cloudy days in May last year. This May has just been sunny most days. I've grouped together some of the generation graphs for the highest days that we've ever generated, including the day in May last year that was our record, to now the day in May that is our new record, 29 kilowatt hours from our Solace array. And what we can see the difference, one's got a really smooth curve line, the other slightly more intermittent, so that's the difference. Plus also, we're also peaking at 3.5 kilowatts, whereas earlier in the year, in February, March time, we've actually seen 3.6 kilowatts through this array. So even in May, it's a peak generation day, but not a peak output day because it's a warmer day and there's more haze in the sky as well. So we're not actually reaching the maximum output of the inverters. Moving on to the battery information, I like this graph because of the blue element at the top that is showing us the state of charge of the battery. On a daily basis we can see how much of the battery we're actually using, and we're not really dropping below 50% on many of the days, apart from when I've been doing some daft tests using more of the battery than I need to. The reason why we're using so little, only 1.5 to 2.5 kilowatt hours of energy, is that we've got so much solar energy we're not using any during the day. And then at night we've got such a low house base load of under 100 watts, then we're not using very much of the battery either overnight. The crazy thing is, I'd like a bigger battery. I'd like a battery with more capacity so that I'm more comfortable to charge the car overnight if I wanted to, or to heat the hot water in the early hours of the morning if I wanted to. I'd like that flexibility, and therefore I'd like a little bit more capacity in the battery I finally get. I haven't really been looking at battery information previously, so I'll now include this chart which comes from the Victron VRM application, and it's showing 65.39 kilowatt hours of energy went from the solar panels into the battery. And then in the other direction I can see that 57.27 kilowatt hours came out of the battery for our consumption in the house. 8 kilowatt hours were therefore lost during the month, transferring energy from the solar panels into the battery and then back out of the battery to use in the house. The Solar Edge app is the one I like to use to work out how much import and export we've had, using only 4 kilowatt hours imported from the grid this month, but we exported 560. Looking at the export of energy through the My Energy app, visually you can really see how much energy we're exporting in a week's view here. Hardly any red, nothing from the grid, but absolutely masses going back out. With so many sunny days this month, you almost get used to the idea that you're going to have a perfect curve of sunshine, filling your battery, heating your hot water, getting all that done first thing in the morning, and then having a complete excess of solar energy throughout the rest of the day, so the chart looks almost empty. If you're going to charge the car, well, we're not driving very much, we're not charging it very much, but if we do charge the car, we're still not using all of the energy, there's loads left. Then of course there's a day that wakes you up where the sun doesn't shine as much. Yes, we're still getting the battery charged, we're still heating our hot water, and we're still powering our house load. Everything's being achieved. A little bit more grid draw, and just not as much excess, not as much export. But right now in May, I've definitely forgotten what it's like to be in the middle of winter with no sunshine at all. I mean, some days during December, January, the solar panels didn't even come on, it was that dark. But those days just seem ages ago right now. Moving on to the last bits, the My Energy Eddy device. Yep, 130 kilowatt hours from solar went to heating our hot water. That's a total of 542 this year and 880 kilowatt hours for heating our hot water since we've had the Eddy device. And not forgetting that all of this energy, the 880 kilowatt hours going into heating our hot water, that's all been for free from our solar panels. Well, I know it's not free because we've paid for the solar panels, but it feels like it's free. And a fraction more use this month from our Zappi device charging our Hyundai Kona Electric, 43 kilowatt hours, and 42.9 of those came from the solar panels. Whilst in lockdown, we've hardly used the car at all.
As always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. If you're watching all the way through to the end, you probably did, so please click like, please click subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. More videos to come about electric cars. Hopefully I'll be doing some test drives soon, and also energy updates. Cracker's come in for a drink, so yeah, slurping on the video. Really professional, eh? Anyway, thanks again for watching, and see you all again soon. Bye for now.
Julius not outspoken, but he likes to speak and he likes to be spoken to. Julius happy. in this way. The truth is happening. It's still.
Thanks for watching. I think that's quite a long video for an update. I hope you enjoyed the information. I hope you enjoyed my perspective. I can't get the word right.